Okay, lesson 8.4 is two pieces. On the front piece, it's going to be identifying conic sections. So if you look down at the bottom, giving you these big, long, crazy equations, like what we've had like on 49 and 50 last night, and being able, without actually doing all the solving, to say, okay, this is a parabola, ellipse, or hyperbola. On the back, which is tomorrow, we'll talk about graphing these conic sections on a graphing calculator, and all of that entails. But for right now, okay, there's three main types of conic sections. We've talked about all these: parabolas, ellipses, hyperbolas. And we're going to learn something called the discriminant test. Does that word sound at all familiar to you?
Discrimination.
I'm talking math related. The word discriminant, though.
No.
Think quadratic formula. The discriminant is part of the quadratic formula. And we would usually use it to see how many solutions a parabola had. B squared minus 4ac. The part under the square root sign? Yeah. So this is a discriminant test. And this is, if you know the value of the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, you can decide if this is a parabola, ellipse, or hyperbola. Now, given, here might be the hard part, this form, and you see it, right? A is your coefficient of the x squared term. B is the coefficient of xy. C is coefficient of y squared. There's dx, there's ey, and f is the constant. And of course, this has to be equals 0 in form. Okay, if you know those variables, or those values, it is a hyperbola if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. What do I mean greater than 0? A positive number, yep. If something is greater than 0, it is positive. So if you do b squared minus 4ac, you get a positive, you know that that's a hyperbola. If you get b squared minus 4ac equals 0, you know it's a parabola. And if you get b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, what does less than 0 mean? Negative. Then it's an ellipse. So knowing those values, you can figure out what each of these is without graphing, without doing all the work of solving. Ready to try? Look at example A. Determine what conic section the following equation would graph by finding the discriminant. So, first thing, my recommendation, identify your ABCs. Or in this case, identify your A through X. Okay? What's in front of x squared?
A.
Okay, that's A. So in this case, A is 9, right? What's B?
We don't know.
We don't know because, well, I wouldn't say we don't know.
We have to do it.
It's 0. Okay? In other words, is there an xy term?
No.
There is no xy term, so if there is no term, then that is 0, because there's an invisible 0xy out there. Okay? What's in front of y squared?
16.
C. And 16. What's in front of x? D. What's in front of y? E. And what's your constant? F. And of course, this is always as long as my equation equals 0.
That is weird. Why do we have to have E at?
You don't need to for the discriminant. I was just having us practicing identifying them. Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so let's practice. B squared minus 4ac. B is 0 squared minus 4 times 9 times 16. Well, I could technically tell you the answer without doing all the math here. Because it's 0 squared, and we're subtracting 4 times 9 times 16. So I know my answer is going to be a negative. Officially, this is 0 minus 576, which is negative 576, which is less than 0 and a negative. So with that information, is this the graph of a hyperbola? A ellipse or a parabola?
Wait. Eclipse.
Ellipse.
Eclipse.
Ellipse.
Oh my gosh.
Although I get that every year.
I need a nap.
We are talking about ellipses, not eclipses. I hadn't heard that yet this year, though, so glad I could hear it again.
You're welcome.
What will happen is when we go to do the review worksheet, some of you will write eclipse. Or maybe you won't now.
Will
But
you count that wrong if
I don't usually. Huh?
Is it an eclipse on that?
No. Okay, now, I would also argue, I know this is an ellipse because there's an x squared and a y squared term. They have the same sign, they're both positive, and they have different values in front of them. So that's how I know it's an ellipse. If they had the same sign and the same numbers, it's a circle, which is a lot like an ellipse, right? Okay, so let's try B. 2xy minus 9. 2xy is what term?
B.
Okay, so we know B is 2. Minus 9. What is that minus 9? F. What is everything else then? Zeros. So, B squared minus 4AC. We're going to say what?
2 squared
2 squared
minus 4 times 0, 0.
minus 4 times 0 times 0. So I'm going to get 4, which is greater than 0. It is positive, which makes this a hyperbola. And you questioned if I could get through these 3 examples. You have to give me credit. I knew what I was going into, though. You guys haven't seen anything this easy for a while, have you? Since December, at least, maybe.
And Emily missed it.
Okay, C. Okay. What's A?
1.
What's B? 4. What's C? 4. What's D? Negative 30. What's E? Negative 90. What's F? 450. So, discriminant, B squared minus 4AC. What are we doing here? 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. 16 minus 16 is 0. What do you know about a 0? It's a parabola. Okay. You can technically start looking at homework. Of the homework, I forget which section it is. I think this is the 43 through 52.
Yeah.
Is this section. 2 through 12 we haven't talked about yet, so you're not ready for that. But you can do 43 to 52 if you wanted to. Now, I will also share, so this would normally be due on Wednesday. I will not be checking it till Thursday, though. So, if that plays into your plan of how and when you do this, you can take that into consideration as well.